I was reading in the paper the other day, Six Nations preview article, and Gordon Darcy, the former Ireland player, was talking about how he always used to talk to the team psychologist about pre-match rituals, and everything had to be in exactly the same order, otherwise his head would be in the wrong place going out on the pitch. And I'm not for 1 second comparing what I do to playing this national rugby in front of thousands, but I did often wonder whether I would need some kind of ritual where, you know, just to get your head in the right place, to get in the zone. But I've never had it, and I almost think if I was to impose something on myself now, it would almost be like a crutch I'd then have to stick to.
Please welcome Ross Harries.
I was given some advice way back in when I first started in journalism. You should treat every programme like you treated an exam, you know, where you knew on an exam paper you'd have maybe 3 questions, but you'd have to know everything you learned on the course for the last 2 years, because you don't know what's going to come up. And it's the same sort of principle, you know, in the space of an hour, you can, once you take away all the VTs and the music and everything else, your chats might only be 15 minutes in total, which isn't that much when you think how long people discuss this sort of stuff in a pub. But in that 50 minutes, anything could come up. So you read loads, you digest loads, and, you know, going to the launch and talking to all the other coaches and captains, that gives you a flavour of what everyone's thinking, what everyone's kind of preparation's been like. But ultimately, if a discussion develops and it's good, you just let it fly, and that is a critical part of the job. I think we can't get bogged down thinking we haven't asked about this, we haven't asked about that, we haven't got his opinion on this, because if the discussion that's underway is better and more lively, you have to be able to make that judgment on air. This is more interesting, let's ditch the rest. You try and get, you know, a bit of humour in there, a bit of rugby for the kind of the hardcore audience, a bit of charisma among the guests, and often a bit of banter as well, you know, because often these rugby shows can be quite straight-laced and almost a bit dull to the casual fan who just tunes in once a year for the Six Nations. Most of the guys are quite polite, and they don't necessarily like disagreeing with each other on television, but it's good television if you do disagree. And we had a great scenario where we were talking about how Wales can be more attack-minded. They've been accused, you know, rightly or wrongly, of having too blunt an attack in recent years. So we focused in on selection, you know, right, if the attack is going to be sharper, which players do you need to pick in which positions? And they all seemed to disagree, didn't they? You know, you had Alfie making a wild card call for Matthew Morgan to start fullback. You had Martin Williams saying it has to be Liam Williams, even though he's only played 60 minutes in 3 months. And Jerry just brings that English perspective as someone who's outside of that Welsh rugby bubble and can perhaps be a bit more dispassionate about selection. So those are the best discussions, when I might have 6 or 7 questions in my head, but I can see those guys just going at it and disagreeing and chipping in, and then my job is much easier because I can just sit back and allow the debate to unfold.